Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now, for your host, Matt Haney.
Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Scalability Code. Today, I'm privileged to have another Texan in the room with us. This is Kevin Taylor from Dallas. Kevin, thanks for joining us today on the Scalability Code.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we always start off with the same thing. Everyone has a story. Everyone has gotten to this point for some reason, some way, in some shape. So why don't you do us a favor and give us a little bit of backstory, your entrepreneurial journey as yourself, kind of how you got to be an implementer. And I do think it as far back as you want to go. We've got time. And I think it's interesting what ends up, you tell me, informs the conversation moving forward. And so take it back as far as you want and give us a little backstory about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent the majority of my career as a commercial banker. So over 25 years in commercial banking. So when I say commercial banking, business banker, whatever you want to call it. So most of my clients I worked with were owner managed businesses. I'm in the Dallas area. So most of those companies were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And revenue size, it looked like anywhere between 2 to 100 million in revenue is kind of center of the fairway for us. Worked with some over that, some under that. And most recently, I was a senior vice president, co-founder of a bank here in Dallas. And so we had started that bank almost 17 years ago. And if you're doing the math, that was 2008.
Yeah, great time to start a bank.
Yeah, it was not a fun year for a lot of banks that were out there. But thankfully, we started the capital raise in 2007, raised about $26 million in capital. We were able to close that capital raise before the bottom fell out. I got pretty lucky on that as I had left a publicly traded bank when we started that venture. And I had sold all my shares right before the bottom fell out. Wow. So sold at $60. A few months later, it was at $20 a share. And so that was pure luck. But it was a good time. I mean, people joke that 2008 was a terrible time to start a bank. It was actually a good time for us because we had a clean balance sheet, none of the problems from the past.
Yep.
And we're able to do a lot of the things that the other banks just weren't willing to do. They cut off the faucet for real estate loans, lines of credits, equipment financing, you fill in the blank. And so it allowed us to be profitable inside that 24-month period. You know, it's about 5 years into that journey is when I was introduced to the book Traction. And it was from one of the OG implementers who is now retired, but he was an implementer back in 2012, 2013, gave me a copy of the book Traction. It's a lot of the books that are sitting behind my shoulder now after watching the video. And I'll be first to admit, it sat on my shelf for quite a while before I cracked it open. But once I opened it, read through chapter 1, I was hooked. So read the remaining of the book, gave a copy to our CEO who read it, loved it. And so we started implementing the tools of EOS inside the bank. And it had a lot to do with our growth over the years. And $26 million capital raise. We're just over $1 billion in assets when I left 2 years ago. And during that same time frame is when I also became part of the entrepreneurs organizations. Dallas was the sponsor of the EO Dallas and was a sponsor there for 8 years. And it was during that time that I realized I had a lot more in common and I enjoyed hanging out with the entrepreneurs a lot more than a lot of my banking colleagues. And so after a decade of, handing out the Traction books, referring prospects, friends, clients to other EOS implementers, when it was, time for me to make that entrepreneurial leap, I decided to become an EOS implementer. So that's what
fabulous.
I do today, and I love it.
So kudos to you for starting a bank, period. I have a close friend down here who started a bank, and I've watched the challenges that he's had, but also the opportunities and the capital raise and the entrepreneurs and all this stuff. Jeff Wilkinson is his name. I don't know if you know Jeff.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Anyway, so let's rewind back. So first, you helped start the bank. You co-ran the bank or were involved, but what was your day-to-day like during those 17 years and sort of what were you doing?
Yeah, so, it was 17 years ago. So I was with the bank for about 15 years.
Okay.
And it started out, when you start with a de novo bank with no relationship, it's a lot of knocking on doors. And
so business development.
Yeah, it was business development.
Love it.
In 2008, so you got to picture this, in 2008, banking industry's collapsing. We are a brand new de novo bank, and we are operating out of a trailer in a parking lot because we don't have our location built yet.
Yeah.
So I'm knocking on doors, telling business owners our story, how we're a new bank, they're starting, and when they ask where the location is, it's that trailer that's in the parking lot. We can take
so we're legit. I promise we're legit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a hard sell sometimes. Yeah. With someone who's a no-name bank starting in 2008, operating out of a trailer in a parking lot.
That's right. And did you create your kind of target market and your ideal customer profile? And were you guys building that just like you would a business? I mean, it is a business, obviously, but like you were targeting a certain subset of potential clients, I'm guessing.
Yes. And I had, at the previous bank, before we started the new one, I had written the business development plan really just through trial and error on that. I was taught one way, which was, the phone calls, getting through the gatekeeper, making the appointment, identifying a need. And that may work sometimes in the middle market or upper middle market. But when you're calling on, the 2 to 100 million in revenue, you've got your business owner that's wearing so many different hats. And it's also real easy for them to get a phone call and just, not answer,
Of
say not
course.
available.
Yeah.
And so what I had thought of is just, well, why don't I just drop in cold on this, just a cold drop in. And it took me a little bit of quite a few drop-ins to perfect my script in there, but I was calling on, again, owner-managed businesses, Dallas-Fort Worth area, really close to where our bank location was. So the script I developed that we just duplicated when we started our bank was just introducing myself as one of the neighbors that came in, and it's my job to meet the business owners in that area. And I hadn't had a chance to meet, Mr. Haney or whoever it was.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I knew that, so I knew the questions they were going to ask, who are you? So I had an answer to that. And once I got in front of the business owner and was just genuinely curious and asking questions on that, they just opened up. And that was the process from starting from zero, no portfolio, to start adding clients to the bank. And I really think as, in that banking industry, every business owner out there has to have a bank account.
Yes,
And
it's a thing.
so they're either going to bank with you or someone else.
Sure.
And so it's all about, what value can you deliver? Who am I talking to? What problems can I solve? What needs do they have? And if you can just figure that out and just be curious and ask questions, it will come.
I'm going to be curious and I'm going to ask a couple questions. How many of those prospects did you roll in on that had a true relationship with the banker? Meaning you go in there, they're like, oh no, Bill Smith, I've banked with him for years. He and I have done a lot of work together. How many times would you hear that?
Very few.
That's my point. Nobody had a relationship. My dad was in commercial banking for 30 years. He worked in a bank in Wichita Falls, where I grew up, north of Dallas. And he did what you did for 30 years. And he said it's surprising how many people who run legitimate businesses processing millions of dollars of deposits every year that could not name a name at the bank they used. So the fact that you could be relevant, top of mind, and curious, I'm sure won you some business.
Yeah, and it was great because I would have fun with it too. And so every now and then, I'd talk to someone, they're like, oh yeah, we've got a great banking relationship. And I'd just, oh great, who? And I would ask, so who would you contact? And they're like, that's a good question. I don't know. And they would start thinking, well, maybe I don't have a great relationship.
Yeah, that's funny. Maybe I don't know anybody. And I think the majority of those folks don't need anything. There's some businesses obviously that have banking needs and you go call them when you need them. But in a perfect world, you'd be able to pull a name out of somebody that at least ask you if they could ever help you. But I always used to still tell my clients today, just being better at business 101 wins you work a lot of time. Just being better at the basics of business, answer the damn phone, return the damn email, those things get you work. Just being better at service. So I'm sure you saw that a lot.
It's all about timing too. And it's the consistency and the follow-up and stuff too. But I would rather someone tell me that they didn't like me, that's why they would never have a bank account with me, than I walk in, they're like, oh, I wish you would have called me last week. I just switched. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all about timing.
My dad used to do this. He would go to Sonic Drive-In and he would buy 6 cherry limeades, because if you know Sonic, you know cherry limeades. And his job was 2 or 3 days a week. Nice job. His shtick was he would go deliver cherry limeades to the person who was the gatekeeper. And my dad for years was known as the cherry limeade guy. But by the way, you said it. It's first of mind. How do I need to be? When they need me, they should know my name. When they don't need me, they're glad to see me. And it's sad. I don't see, and I don't know, welcome your feedback on this. I don't know how often that happens. It happens in the construction space that I've seen with some of my clients, but that hand-to-hand guerrilla marketing, I don't know. It's just not as popular as it used to be.
Yeah. And man, the cherry limeades on a hot Texas summer day is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see it a lot. And I would get that, some of the responses I would get is like, I can't remember the last time I've talked to my banker or whatever it was in that industry. And so there's a lot of low hanging fruit out there. But yeah, that was the first phase of our business development, was just the drop-ins. That was phase one.
Absolutely. Were you responsible for you shepherding the relationship through the approval process, gathering documentation, learning and asking questions about the business?
Yes.
So-
Early on, it was everything. But as we grew, and some of that stuff we'd have to delegate out, because ultimately, highest and best use, I know, of my time, and quite frankly, not one of my strengths, is the underwriting, the renewals, the exception report, all that stuff is not in my zone of genius on there. I mean, we're talking about Lencioni's working genius. I mean, I know my geniuses are innovation and galvanizing. And so, but the tenacity enablement are my frustrations. And that has a lot to do with, the renewals, the exception reports, and everything else that comes in.
Well, the reason I was asking is I'm bringing this towards your business as an implementer and what it takes to be an implementer. And I think being a generalist to understand all the assets and facets of the business, I'm sure you got to see a lot of different things in businesses and challenges, and underwriting would come back to you and say, hey, Kevin, there's this issue or that issue. Would you have to be the one that delivers that news? Or as you guys got bigger, was your underwriting handling those tough conversations?
No, I was handling the tough conversations on that. And I do remember early on in my banking career, delivering that first no was tough.
Yeah, it is.
Because you don't want to tell someone you can't do something. And so it was tough. But yeah, the more you do it, it just becomes natural on it. But I think the reason where I think community banks can add value on that is that the good thing about a lot of the larger banks is they can give you a credit decision pretty quick. It's a yes, no, but it's central underwriting. I mean, it feeds into the computer. It gives you yes, no. If it's yes, that's great. If it's no, it's like, I don't know why. But, a lot of community banks, at least how we worked at the times before a lot of the AI stuff came out or is coming out, it was you're manually underwriting it. And so while I probably can't get you an answer in 30 minutes, when I do get you an answer, if it is, hey, unfortunately at this time, can't move forward on this, I could give some clarity into the why behind it. And like, here's how to fix that. And so, that was, that's one of the advantages of, working with a true, banker who understands the underwriting part of it.
So it's interesting because it's like you said, delivering that first no is tough, but I'm guessing here, putting kind of the pieces together, that a lot of what you saw in the banking world in terms of just deficiencies with businesses, parallels into the work you're seeing with EOS as an implementer. I mean, there's some overlap. There's probably a lot of synergies. It says, there's core fundamental pieces that are missing from this business. We're not going to be able to underwrite this because X, Y, and Z. Don't have it, doesn't exist, doesn't look good, can't tell a story, don't have it measurable. Financials look like they're a mess. Accounting systems are non-existent. I mean, these are all things that I know I see as a fractional integrator every day, and I'm sure you see every single session you're in with some of your clients. Maybe not as they grow, but certainly infant clients are struggling with, just business 101, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and that's the good. It's fun looking back, connecting the dots is I feel like that 25-year career in that banking industry prepared me really well for what I do today. And
100%.
Like all the different businesses I've worked with, I've got to peek behind the curtain of
hundreds,
so many different companies,
hundreds of businesses,
every single industry.
Yep.
And, sit in loan committees and see and hear the decisions that are being made and why they're making those. And it's just set me up really well for what I do now. And I love it because, I'm the teacher, coach, facilitator on it. I'm not having to do a ton of that heavy lifting. That's really, the visionaries and the integrators and the rest of the leadership team are doing. I'll help coach them through it. And do it.
I'm trying to think of a better sort of setup for an implementer than someone who's been staring in thousands of businesses as a banker, because I'm just like, it's like ding, 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 all the dots are lining up. I mean, I don't know what better background you could have that would give you a perspective of just stories and challenges and issues. And, if it's out there, you've probably heard about it from a business owner who's in underwriting, or, their business is, I've seen businesses fall apart right before lines of credit are issued, or, where they're trying to, they're trying to show you June's billings because July's don't look so good. And they're just like all of the things that business owners do to try to get credit. I'm sure it's given you a ton of perspective. You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it. Okay, so let's fast forward to your implementer business. You obviously took your incredible business development skills that you've honed for years and years and cranked up an EOS Implementer business. How did that start? What, you said you used it, you used EOS in your bank, but how did you what was the segue like to starting the Implementer business?
It was really just reaching out to a lot of the people I've already had relationships with through the bank side. And what I really love, and now that I'm doing this, is both in banking and now as an EOS implementer, I love the game of business. And I love how it works. I like helping people get more of what they want from the business. Sometimes it's hard because you know what they need and you know how to do it. It's like, how do I get them to see this? Working with the same types of clients I did in the past, but helping them get more of what they want from their business by implementing EOS.
So were you able to essentially go back to some of those relationships that you've had in Dallas for decades and say, hey, this is what I'm doing now. I've set up this business. And was that a pretty good lead generation opportunity for you? And
you would think it is. And there's a lot of them that are in the pipeline now that just haven't pulled the trigger on this. And so I'm thinking about my client base now. And I don't think there is one that I have now that was a current banking client.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's kind of good reflection.
That's a great reflection. I would have assumed, based on all the connections you have with business owners and the relationships you established with them over the years, that it would be a natural to go back and be like, hey, this is, I've retired from this and here's my new path. But that's really cool that you're able to spin up the business that without sort of the springboard of the bank. That's fabulous.
Yeah. And I can think of a couple of them though that are companies that I called on that I did want to move over to the bank I was with. And, I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, well, they're EOS clients of mine, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. How long have you been a full-time implementer?
Right at 2 years now.
Okay, great.
And as soon as I got off, so outside, and I don't think we talked about this in the previous, so outside of banking and EOS implementation, my wife and I also have a real estate portfolio. We dabbled in the restaurant business for a little bit. I say dabbled in there because, and we had opened up a restaurant. I always say my wife's passion is to bring joy to people through food. And she loved the food industry. We just realized about a year and a half into, probably about a year into that the restaurant business is a very, very hard business to be a part of. And I actually have a client of mine that's in the restaurant industry, and I've warned him, like, man, this is a tough industry. And they're seeing that firsthand.
What was the concept? What did you guys create?
So it was a very small franchise. It was a superfood cafe. And so it was things like acai bowl, smoothies, avocado toast.
Under what brand?
It was the brand name it's 2 Wows. It was a Wow Wow Hawaiian lemonade was the brand. Okay. And we were the first to bring that franchise to Texas. They had a cool story, right? They started in the farmers markets of Hawaii selling handcrafted lemonade, hence the name. Then, that was successful, moved into brick and mortar. And then they started doing the acai bowl, smoothies, avocado toast. And we fell in love with it when my mom's side of the family's from Hawaii. And so when we were over there, we ran across it before they started franchising. And when we found out they were franchising, we were the first to bring that to Texas.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a hard world to live, managing people, razor thin margins, begging for volume, seasonality, location, all the stuff. Restaurants are a really, really tough business. I don't have to tell you, firsthand. I have a little background in a couple as well. But no, that's fantastic. Okay, couple questions. In your sessions, Is there a reference? Is there an analogy? Is there a common theme that you draw to? My experience with implementers, and I've been in the session room with dozens of implementers over the years, and maybe not dozens, but lots of them. And there's a shtick or a thing or a reference that people get to draw to. So be thinking of, if you have it. If it immediately comes to mind, tell me. But if not, I got a couple more questions for you. But I do want to come back to that because I think there's some themes that help entrepreneurs and management teams in session kind of conceptualize their business through stories and vision and things that you tell. So does anything come to mind?
Yeah, the ones I see the hardest decisions to make is when they know they either have a wrong person, right seat, or right person, wrong seat. To make that tough decision, especially when it's someone that sits on the leadership team.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. I inherited a client through a local implementer to be named at another time. And they caught me fire drill right before their quarterly came up, and they said, "Hey, we were with an implementer. We're doing it on our own now." That's the immediate red flag. Either the implementer fired them or they fired the implementer. And we have 12 people on our leadership team. And I went, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, we have 12 people in our quarterlies next week. Can you come sit in and help us?" It's like, oh my God.
Wow.
So I sat in there, and literally, Kevin, you hit it on the head. There were people in that room. There were 5 people from the sales organization in there. It's like, why do we have 5 people here? But it goes back to what you said. Right people, wrong seat, wrong people, right seat, all the things. But man, leadership team dynamics are one of the hardest things. I don't have to tell you, you do it every day, and I've done it for 2 years. But it's just really challenging to let someone know they're not part. Short term they're on, but long term we don't have a plan to, or we're rebuilding a leadership team. You're affecting big dynamics in the business.
Yeah. I mean, it's really tough on the leadership team. I think that's the hardest part, is make that decision. But I've even seen it, one level down, and they know the decision they need to make, and especially if it's just a wrong person on there. They're sitting in the right seat. Maybe and tell them, it's like, nothing will kill a good employee faster than you watching you tolerate a bad one.
Yeah,
they're doing more damage than good.
Absolutely.
Here. And yeah, but I'm not going to force they know the decision they need to make. They just have to make it.
That's exactly right. Okay. Next, I want you to pull out your phone. If you've got it somewhere close, go grab it if you need to.
Okay.
I want you to flip it open and show me your last podcast that you listened to. And you got to show me, don't make it up. It can be about gardening.
Nope. I can have it right here. It is this one, Shed and Shine. Gino.
Shed and Shine. Oh, there you go. That's pretty great. And when was the last time you listened to something?
Oh, I listen to him every day. I mean,
Awesome.
I don't know, an hour ago.
All right, I'm going to show you mine. This is My First Million. And it was with Scott Galloway. Have you listened to this one? Do you know Scott?
I don't know.
Scott.
The name sounds familiar.
He's on Instagram, and he's a Professor Galloway is what he goes by. And I really, really suggest you listen to him. I think he's got a ton of perspective. The podcast you mentioned, you've got a real estate portfolio. My first job out of college was an analyst for a real estate firm, and we bought single family homes all over the state. And Scott Galloway will tell you that his best long-term investments are buying real estate in places billionaires want to live. That's his thing. He's like, I've developed this shtick and I developed this theory and this principle that he's buying real estate where billionaires want to live. Take it or leave it or whatever. But I think it's pretty interesting that you have real estate portfolio. I was in real estate investing for a while. And then the last podcast I listened to this morning while I was exercising was a very respected investor talking about investing in real estate, because he claims the markets are going to be flat for the next 10 years in North America. And he's putting investments in Europe, but really he's dumping a lot of his wealth into long-term holds for real estate.
Yeah, and it's like, I could talk about podcasts all day long. I mean, one of my favorite ones that I just got introduced to is called The Rundown. It's a 10-minute. Yeah, they're only 10 minutes long.
Right now.
Yeah,
The Rundown.
Only 10 minutes long, and they give you the rundown of what happened yesterday, either in the markets or what's going on in the world. And I like it because it's like 10 minutes.
That's
My favorite, though, probably my favorite one, and I'm having withdrawal symptoms because they haven't had a new one come out in 6 days yet, is Peter Diamante's Moonshots.
Okay.
Oh man, when they talk about he has these episodes of WTF is going on in AI? And man, I can listen. Peter Diamante's Moonshots is probably one of my favorites.
That's amazing.
But yeah, there's so many of them that I love.
Run down the last episode. One of the episodes I just glanced at it when I followed it. One of them was about Palantir. Do you follow Palantir at all? And sort of
I don't. They were just talking about it. Yeah.
You need to listen. Yeah. It's crazy. So one of my clients in Dallas, shout out to my folks, Ranger Data. They're one of my EOS fractional integrator clients, is a Palantir custom development shop. And they develop Palantir products for businesses that are using complex data to analyze their business and give them real-time decisions. It's really freaking cool, Kevin, what Palantir is able to do. So anyway, it's interesting that you gave me 2 good podcasts. You're going to go listen to My First Million, or Scott Galloway's got a good podcast that are really good to listen to. And I think Scott's very entertaining and pragmatic, and he talks about his losses. Kevin, how many times have you listened to a podcast and it talks about all the greatness? It's like, I, as an operator, and entrepreneurs want to commiserate. They want to understand that it's challenging. Scott will tell you the falls, the flops that he's had, and the lessons that he's learned from it, and how his star refocuses. And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, someone who tells me that they've never lost money or if they've never failed it, I'm like, yeah, that's one. I don't believe you.
Exactly.
You just haven't done this long enough.
Exactly.
On that, because that's not a true. I mean, I think about the lessons learned on, especially going back in the the restaurant industry. Yeah, I broke my rules when looking at location number 2, because I didn't think they applied to me. This is my ego getting in the way, right? And my rule that I would tell someone, a third party, is don't open up location number 2 until number 1 is open and profitable. Well, our location number 1 was not open, and of course it wasn't profitable.
Right.
And thank goodness this was during like the COVID years. The city of Dallas was dragging their feet on permitting, because had we received our permit when we wanted it, I would have been another $400,000 in the hole renovating a lease space. Thank goodness our first space we own. I mean, it's a property we own that we're not a landlord on, but it would have been another $400,000 dumped into a lease space that we would have had to been like, well, that was an expensive lesson. And so
yeah. Well, the rules apply to you. That's what I always tell my clients. The visionaries is like, rules apply to you. All right, let's switch a little bit to EOS and give you a couple more minutes on this stuff. Think back to your last session. What tool did you use in that session that was did it unlock any ahas or anything that was most impactful for that leadership team?
So my last session was yesterday. And
Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So the tool that we rolled out on that one, this was VB2. So it was the Delegate and Elevate. Love it. This group is so good.
What industry are they in?
They are therapists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
But they're such a great team. It's a leadership team of 3. And man, they're doing all the work. VB2, literally. We go in there. And when we set rocks on focus day, and I'm like, hey, they're due on VB2, you really only have 60 days to do it.
Sure.
Usually my teams are coming back with 50% or less of their rocks actually done. They came back with 88.6%.
Get out. That's fabulous.
And they set really good rocks too.
They
weren't just like...
Give me an example. Do you remember any of them, or what kind of, generally speaking, what they were? I'm always fascinated at the various rocks that come out for different clients. And because sometimes when they're early in their EOS journey, they're setting kind of 101 fundamental reporting or accounting or just various types of rocks that are, but these folks may have something that's a little more in depth.
One of them, especially coming out of VB2, is rolling out EOS. Doing the EOS
making
rollout
it stick.
Because that's the thing is what I got to remind the leadership team of is that, look, you guys have spent 3 full days learning this, becoming a master of the foundational tools of EOS. I mean, yes, now you know what an accountability chart is and what the rocks are, and a level 10 meeting, and your scorecard, and the 5 leadership abilities, all that stuff. And you've been talking about it for 3 full days over a 60-day period. But you got to remember, when you start rolling this stuff out to the team, they don't know any of this stuff. And I think one of the best books in the EOS library is the What the Heck is EOS book. And I admit that that's probably one of the last books I read inside the EOS library because I knew what it was. I'm like, I don't need to read this book. But I read it and I'm like, this is actually written really, really well. It's the high level version. It's got pictures, but it's a really good book, not just for all the employees, but I think it's for the leadership team as well. And so I gave them all a copy of the What the Heck is EOS and encouraged them to, give those out to their staff and also have their staff take the organizational checkup. It's a good,
absolutely
good baseline.
Yes,
see where they are.
Yes. I was on a podcast the other day with Beth Fahey. I don't know if you know Beth. Fahey. And do you know Beth? She and Marissa Smith are drumming up a book around rollout, around just exactly what you're seeing, which is like, how do we get these folks to roll this business out and make it stick? And that's a lot of what I do as a fractional integrator, is help leadership teams reinforce the core principles of EOS and make sure that they're operating on a weekly basis. And it's really hard. I feel like at times I, implementers, send this beautiful Ferrari out into the world and hope that they can, that the visionary and the leadership team can keep it on the road. And it's hard. I mean, it's really hard because I take it for granted because I've done it for years. It's so second nature to me. But, if you ask me to go be a synchronized swimmer, I have no idea how to do it. You'd have to teach me and walk me through it. I don't even know. But EOS becomes so natural to me. I think, just to your point, making sure that folks are understanding what EOS, the values of it, and just repetition, right? It's all about just getting in there, even if it's not perfect. Do it. Have the awkward moments where it's like, oh man, are we really doing this the right way? Is it the wrong way? Who knows? You're doing it. Just improve incrementally every day.
Yeah. But back to your question on the tools, I mean, the one before that, so like on the quarterly, they cash flow drivers. And that was a fun one to do. And that was such a good conversation because not only, did they find some other ways to increase revenue, they really had some really great ideas on how to cut expenses.
Love that.
Yeah. And so they cash flow drivers, that was a really fun one.
I haven't done that one in forever. You've challenged me to go back and look at that and give, because there are some clients that I have that are struggling. One of them is a retail business. They've got a self-tanning salon and the business is great, but they need to really go back in and look at those. So I'm going to flip that idea over to the implementer and ask them to potentially bring that up at the quarterlies coming up. That's awesome. One more thing, scorecard. I always ask this question because scorecard is one of the most fascinating things to me. I have had many clients that brag about themselves having green. All the numbers are green. And I always tell them a good scorecard is not all green. What do you mean? It's like, well, we need to push ourselves, right? We need to set goals. We need to be looking at things. How often are you seeing scorecards change? And how often during session are you, provoking that conversation around reassessing the scorecard or changing the targets?
Yeah. It happens more than it doesn't happen. I would say that.
That's great.
And it's good because and there's a great book that's out now, the data book, and it really dives deep into the importance of having a really great scorecard. And it should always be evolving on this. And a really good scorecard has a good, mix of leading and lagging indicators in it. Some industries, it's maybe hard to have some of those leading indicators, but I challenge my teams. I'm like, hey, let's try to get a good combination of both leading and lagging indicators on that scorecard, a good mix of those. And but it should be either updating one of the goals on the measurables or adding or taking off a measurable. Do we really need to see this on a weekly basis?
Right.
Yeah. So it should be.
Man, have you inherited any scorecards that are like, 27 lines long? Do you see that, or are you seeing them mainly pretty concise?
I have, in full transparency, these are the scorecards for companies that are self-implementing.
Yeah.
And I always offer to take a look at it. And I looked at one that it had 43 items on it. And I'm like, well, no wonder. Like, why do you have so many things? Like, do you really need to know all of this stuff on a weekly basis? And then so we were going through it.
Yeah. What'd you end up getting down to, more or less? Do you remember?
Well, this was one self-implement, and so I gave them recommendations on that. I don't know what they ended up going on. This wasn't a full EOS client for me, so
right. Man, the more is just more, and What I love to do is kind of scroll back over. We use 90.io a lot. I've had dozens of clients on it, and you go back and you just keep scrolling, and I'm like, hey, all these are green. Come on, how is this helping us operate the business? And I'll push and I'll say, hey, we really got to dig deep. What is it? Okay, well, it's cash flow. Well, and just kind of pushing that curiosity to help people understand that, you can really do an effective scorecard with 10 or less. I'm a big believer of it. And yeah, you can measure that stuff and track it somewhere else in your CRM or whatever, but let's try to keep it simple and really know that when something's off track, it's impacting the business.
Well, and we got to think about, the whole purpose of the scorecard, right? I mean, that's one of the disciplines under the data component when we're looking at the EOS model. And, the purpose of the whole data when we're teaching it, it's to make, decisions. And so are we using this data to help us make decisions? If all of it's green, I mean, are we really challenging
That's right.
ourselves, or do we need to adjust the goal? But it's based on facts, figures, objective information instead of the feelings, emotions, and egos that often drive the decision making in entrepreneurial companies. And so it being all green, is that an ego thing? Does that make us feel good?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure. I don't know either.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, a couple more questions and I'll let you go. So you're a family guy. I'm a family guy. You like to travel. I like to travel. And part of my commitment to living my best EOS life, and you live in yours, is traveling with family. So tell me a memorable trip or an upcoming trip with your family.
So it's funny, as we're recording this, my whole family's in Germany right now.
Wow.
So my wife is German. All of her family lives there. And so my wife and both kids, who are 14 and 15, are there in Germany. But our most memorable trip was earlier this year. We took a family trip, and it was with some other great entrepreneur friends of ours, to the BVI.
Wow.
And we actually have a friend of ours that owns an island in the BVI. And so
Very
we're on
cool.
her private island for a week and
Very
having
cool.
our meals together, dinner, got to know them really well. And we're actually repeating that trip next year.
How amazing and beautiful is that? That's so cool. Did you guys go sailing or do anything, go out on the water? Obviously, it's all on the water. So what, you just a bunch of activities?
Yeah, we did some activities on there, and then we took a boat over to the baths over in the BVI, and then they actually have their own, it's called Aerial BVI. They actually have their own little sailboats and stuff that we did, but played, both my kids play volleyball, and so we had a lot of fun on volleyball tournaments. And
that's awesome.
Of course, we're there with entrepreneurs, and so we're the island owner. She walked us through an exercise of writing her own eulogy, and to see our 14 and 15-year-old actually do that, man.
I just heard this. I don't know where I heard this. I just heard it recently. It must be a thing, but how it impacts, because the idea is to write your eulogy and use that to transform and change your life between now and then, right?
Your North Star.
That's right. Writing what you want to be known for and executing against it.
Yeah, it's the filter. It's the filter that all your decisions should be made from.
That's so rad. You're the second time I've heard that in the last week to 10 days. Yeah. I'm going to have to jump in.
Well, think about it. Like through the EOS world, right? We're helping companies, where execute on their vision. That's the whole traction book, is bringing your vision down to the ground, executing on it with discipline and accountability. And so when you have a clear vision and where you're going on that, either in the business or individual, it just makes those yes/no decisions so much easier. And it's that staying laser focused on that. Is
this part of my path or not? I love it. That's so cool, Kevin. That's so cool.
Yeah. So that was the most memorable trip. I mean, I don't know how we topped that. It was a lot of fun with just great people, and our kids getting to hear a lot of the stuff that I want to tell them, but not from me. They get to hear it from someone else, which resonates different, right?
So different. It hits so different. It wasn't until I got to be like a young man, probably in my early 20s, that my dad was very wise. Turns out he's been wise my whole life, but I wasn't ready to hear it from him until I was in my early 20s. Sure. But all of a sudden, my buddy's dad, he was wise when I was 14. So to your point, it's different when you hear it from somebody that's not your parent. And then obviously, as your kids get older, I have a 15-year-old as well. So as your kids get older, they become understanding of the fact that you're a pretty smart guy.
Yeah. And hopefully they realize that eventually. And that's why I love doing these podcasts, right? Because this will live on forever. And
that's right.
When they're ready, hopefully they'll stumble upon this.
That's exactly right. Listen up. You've got two girls?
Boy and a girl.
Okay.
Yeah, boy's older.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough, Kevin, for your time and for joining us in the Scalability Code. It was awesome to chat with you and hear your story and see the ways you're working with your clients. And I really Appreciate your time, and hopefully we can continue to stay in touch.
Yeah, Matt, this was fun. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of the show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.